Controversial video games making news headlines isn't new, so you'd think a sweet little game like Animal Crossing would have no business being lumped in with things like that. Wrong. New Horizons has proven that even the most wholesome games can make the news for negative reasons. Although New Horizons wasn't the first Animal Crossing game in the series to have a controversy, I'll be focusing specifically on it for the following 5 times New Horizons made news headlines for the wrong reasons. You'll probably have seen this first one if you've spent any time on Twitter. PETA tried to cancel Blathers. PETA, the animal rights group, uploaded a TikTok and posted it on Twitter on May 19th of this year of members running around the museum shouting via in-game text at Blathers to empty the tanks and that fish are friends in protest. The video states that Blathers encourages players to take fish out of their natural habitat so he can trap them in tiny tanks. They followed the video with a guide on how to go vegan in Animal Crossing, which basically tells you to avoid doing anything in the game. They also were responding to people on Twitter and then posted quite gruesome clips of real life animals being killed, so don't look that up. Regardless of your opinions on PETA, this protest is ridiculous in this circumstance. The fish and bugs aren't real. Blathers is not real. None of the things you do in Animal Crossing have any real world consequence. I'm all for being against taking fish out of their natural habitat and shoving them into tanks that are far too small for entertainment purposes, but I'm fairly sure the average player of Animal Crossing is not going to attempt to shove a whale shark in a kid's paddling pool in real life. Let's also address the fact that for them to have stormed the museum in the first place, they had to have caught the fish and bugs to put them in there to begin with. Someone did point this out to them and they said they were raiding islands to free the fish, but I'm not so sure. Their vegan guide goes into how you can enjoy the game in a vegan friendly way, but at one point suggests that you destroy the environment of the pill bugs, the centipedes and the snails, and that's not very vegan of you. Anyway, none of it is real, so leave Blathers alone. Next on our list is how the Animal Crossing community looked ridiculous to the rest of the world. You might have noticed that a new villager that was added with New Horizons became fairly popular. Raymond is a cat with heterochromia. He became one of the most wanted villagers to the point where people were sending really obscure messages to try and get him from those who had him on offer, and even those who didn't. Hello, I have been following your tweets for the past 2 days and have come to the conclusion you do not deserve to have Raymond on your island. He is my comfort character and seeing him in an environment not meant for him brings me anxiety. So I'll be expecting a reply to this DM when you have him in boxes and ready to relinquish him to someone who will treasure him like he deserves. Some people were claiming he was selling on eBay for over $1,000, but this seems to be false. However, I can find sold listings for £20 and as much as £35, which is equally as silly. On the trading site Nookazon, he goes for about 10 million bells, which is the highest price of any villager on the site, beating Judy by 1 million bells and Sherb, the next highest asking price, by 8 million bells. Of course, the community can't be too serious for too long and ended up making memes about it, posting fake listings where the asking price was impossible or just plain ridiculous as a joke, posting pictures of Raymond in boxes where Raymond is drawn, photoshopped or literally placed in a box in a variety of different ways. I think this is hilarious and probably one of my favourite memes to come from New Horizons, and as someone who managed to get Raymond as my very first campsite villager, I'll be protecting him with my life. He is not for sale because you don't deserve him. On the topic of Raymond costing a bomb, New Horizons also made headlines for its villager black market. Not as awful as the real black market, but you saw previously about how much just Raymond and Judy cost. It's pretty wild. Again, on sites like Nookazon, villagers go for an insane amount of in-game money or Nook Miles tickets, and it's not just the villagers, their photos are equally as expensive. Surprisingly now though, the most expensive photo is of Peck at 5 million bells and not Raymond. Good for Peck, I guess. Some people were even selling villagers for real money. Dom the sheep was going for 5,000 yen in Japan, which is about £37, but Nintendo have commented on this and have stated it's actually against the terms and conditions and will begin handling it. However, this may only apply to Japan, but even if it is, don't spend real money on in-game items. This is why subreddits like NoFeAC exist. This next one was actually in headlines before the game had even released. Way to go, New Horizons, controversial before we'd even started. This was because of a detail that came out on February 20th in an Animal Crossing Direct when Nintendo announced that New Horizons didn't support the cloud save feature. It was right near the end of the Direct and it got acknowledged for about 20 seconds where they spoke about another way to recover your save data. The method they mentioned has only just been released as of the 1.4 update that came out at the end of July. The decision to not support cloud save was met with a lot of backlash. It was another blow to then find out out that you couldn't even move your save data to another Switch console. The reactions just got worse. You had the generic angry fans who were just spewing vitriol against the company, but you also had those who were making extremely valid points. One of the biggest selling points for the Nintendo Switch Online service is that you get the cloud save feature, and many third-party games are supported by this. But New Horizons wasn't the first time a first-party game wasn't supported. Splatoon 2 and Pokemon Sword and Shield are also not supported on the cloud, so why should consumers pay for a service offered by a company whose own games aren't supported by that service? It's ridiculous in theory. New Horizons is adding ways to back up your islands now, but I can't help but agree that it's not cool to charge for a service that the biggest name games can't even use. At least Super Smash Bros. Was safe. Before we get to number 5, I just want to give an honourable mention to a great headline from The Verge with Animal Crossing New Horizons is tearing my family apart. This was to do with the only one island per Switch debacle. If you have multiple accounts on a Switch and each of you want to play New Horizons, you all have to share an island. And only one of you can be the resident representative, and that will be the first person to load up the game. This means that the other people on the island can't do certain things because they're not the representative. This includes things like moving buildings and selling land to then invite villagers, which if you're working together to build your own utopia, this can become quite tiresome when one of you can't do some of the tasks. Likewise, if one of you spends a couple of hours pulling weeds, collecting materials, etc., this gives the next person less to do because you've already done everything. It wasn't received well, and to this day, people still want to have separate islands per Switch account. I can't say I disagree with them, but I am also lucky enough to be on my desert island alone. New Horizons was banned in China, but Cresselia, Animal Crossing didn't officially release in China. Look, if people want to play New Horizons, they'll find a way to play New Horizons. Without getting too into it, the people of Hong Kong have been protesting against the Chinese government in a pro-democracy movement for some time now. These protests had made their way into New Horizons through the custom designs feature. People were making free Hong Kong signs, designs of the Chinese president Xi Jinping and then hitting it with a net, and much more. According to gaming analyst Daniel Ahmad, games in China only tend to be banned if they fall into two categories. They are too offensive or violent, or they're very popular and have caught the attention of regulators. New Horizons fit both. But how is the game violent or offensive, I hear you ask? Well, for the Chinese regulators, anti-government protest material is offensive. The game then disappeared from the marketplace Taobao, which is China's equivalent of eBay, soon after. In 2017, Taobao had actually banned imported video game discs and cartridges, but they don't enforce it unless the regulators take notice of a particular game. New Horizons fell victim to the enforcement of this policy. And that's 5 times New Horizons made the headlines for the wrong reasons. I hope you've enjoyed this video. A like would be appreciated if you did. Comment down below anytime you've seen Animal Crossing make the headlines for a not so good reason. Subscribe to see more from me, follow my Twitter and Instagram to see what else I get up to, join the Discord for a fun, wholesome time, and I'll see you next time. Bye!